This is Creatures of the Night podcast, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Wendy.
So, Wendy, what the heck have you been up to? It's like we haven't seen each other in forever.
I thought about that the other day. I was like, it's going to be really weird recording this way for months. All our podcasts that have come out have been ones that we recorded when we were together. And so now it's like, who are we in these little boxes? Plus, it's been like a whole almost 2 months since I've seen you, like face to face. We talk all the time, but...
Yeah, but doing it like this again, it is weird. I'm back in the basement in the podcast tomb in New England. But yeah, like Wendy said, we were together for these 5 days doing all these podcasts back to back to back, which spun into like 2 months of podcasts for you guys. So I know you guys just heard us last week and it's nothing, to you. But for us, it's like, where have you been, Wendy? For me, it's like, oh my God, I got to remember how to do this podcast thing again. But just in case you're new here, we record our shows in advance anyways. It just makes things a little easier for us to have lives on the side, know things that are coming up and like, we have to record this and that. But so speaking of recording our shows in advance, when this episode airs, it will be the first week of November.
Yes, the Monday after like Halloween and Day of the Dead and everything.
Exactly. So, and October was just such a quick month, man. It was gone in a blink of an eye, right? Boom, it's already over. I tried so hard to squeeze in as much as I possibly could, during the month. And I know, Wendy, you have too, just trying to do anything that you possibly can.
I tried, like beginning of the month, I'm the one that messaged Chris and said, I'm going to go to Bisbee this weekend. Every weekend, I'm going to try to basically celebrate haunted locations. Did I do that? No. I did go to Bisbee, but then the weekends that followed, the ideas that I had, they just fell through. But you were all over the place. So I was like, well, good. I'm glad she went with it.
I took a cue from my dad. He actually told me, get out, go do stuff, and don't worry about me and all of this and that. So I took his advice. I went to Salem. My dad had given me the all clear, go ahead, go down to Salem, go do your thing, take me some pictures. That's what my dad really wanted. He wanted to see some fall pictures. Unfortunately, I went down to Salem and it was not fall looking. It looked like summertime still. The trees were still green. There was no really pretty fall-like pictures that I could send him. And while I was there, I found out really quickly that because of COVID-19, Salem was slimming down their tours. So they've only got like maximum amounts of people going, I think in groups of 10, when normally they'll, book out to like 30 people, things like that. And there's lines out the door down the street. So it was pretty crazy, but I got to experience what I could while I was there. And now for Halloween and everything, like they completely locked it down. They shut the stores down at 8:00 at night. If you didn't have tickets for tours, don't bother coming because they're even closing the parking garages at certain times. They put it on lockdown. So
I saw that. I saw you post that. That was insane.
I know, isn't that nuts? Well, it's good because they're just trying to stop the spread of the virus, but it's so disheartening, man. So many people look forward to going to Salem for Halloween and, they have parades and it's just a huge party, but I'm glad that they're taking it seriously and they're being smart about it. And I'm also really glad that I got down there when I did and got my pictures in advance. But yeah, then I went also to the USS Salem, which was high up on my bucket list of things that I wanted to check out. Been wanting to check it out forever. It's been docked in Quincy, Mass since the 90s. And it's been on Ghost Hunters and, they find stuff on there and they've posted it. And like, you can go and read about this place. And it says like, even in the tour description that people that come just to visit it usually walk away having an experience. Shit, I did too. I was shocked as shit, man. I just didn't expect that. I was just going because it's a haunted ship. I just kind of want to be there. And also it's just got a lot of history to it too. And plus I've seen it on TV with Ghost Hunters, OG style. I got to get down there. I got to have my little time. There's a chalkboard down there. I wrote COTN Paranormal was here, baby.
But like we do this stuff all the time. Oh, this is haunted. I've got to go by. I've got to take the day tour or whatever, just whatever I can to get inside. And you're like, please, fingers crossed, something happens. Nothing happens. You're not surprised. You're like, yeah, it's a day tour. I just came here. I've only been here a couple of hours. But fuck. You just walk in there and it's like, oh, hello.
Hello. Thank God somebody came down here to visit us. That's kind of how it felt. Because when I was there was 2 families there. Both families had 3 people in them. I saw them. And once I saw them on the ship, I never saw them again. The ship was so big. We all went our separate ways. And that was it. Like I felt like I was on the boat by myself the whole time, you know?
Wow.
So I don't know if they had made it down that way yet or if they were waiting for me. I mean, there are a lot of people who go to these things that really, read every little blurb that's on the wall. And I'm just like, that's neat, click, that's neat, click, that's neat, and I just keep on walking. So I made my way all the way to one end of the vessel and I saw where, oh, I can go downstairs and it's dark. Oh, yes, let's do that. So I go downstairs to where it would be like it's cots like everywhere, but they're cots that are stacked on top of each other because I guess they had to really squeeze as many people in as they possibly could, right? So
Yeah.
I just go down there in the dark, and as soon as I'm walking in, all of a sudden a screw just falls down on my foot. It's just like blank. And I'm wearing those Toms. Heck, I'm wearing the Toms now. Look, these are thin. It's not like I'm wearing, sneakers, Nikes or something that has a lot of cushion, something that's made for running or walking. I don't ever, as Wendy's pointed out before, I don't ever wear proper footwear wherever I go.
No, you
We're
don't.
going walking all day. Let me get the thinnest pair of shoes I could possibly find for my feet.
Let me get my sandals, have my toes exposed.
My flip flop. Yes. I think more of comfort for my toes breathing, but not so much for, I guess the long term and what we're doing. But anyways, yes. So it wasn't like a big massive screw and I didn't bring it down here for show and tell, but I posted a video on Instagram. It's not like something that would have caused me to have a concussion, but if it hit me in the head, it would have hurt, this thing. And it was just like a little gentle, playful, like blink, I'm here. And I'm just like, what the hell? How did that even happen? If I had kicked it, I would have felt it because these shoes are so fucking thin. I'm not wearing socks either.
Yeah.
Know?
Seriously,
So
how would you
it was
kick
cool.
it up too so that it would fall on your foot? I mean,
Right.
I realize it might be possible. I guess I don't know. I'm not a physics teacher, but like maybe you could have stepped on it the right way that it flips up. I don't fucking know.
Flips up.
Yeah,
Right.
but I mean, like the way you're describing it is it's semi-hurt, so it seems like it would have had to have dropped from pretty high, not you just kicked it up right in front of your foot.
Right. And okay, so going back to what you were saying a second ago, I was never a master hacky sacker. So I couldn't do any
Right.
kind of crazy flips with my feet, That's why I turned on my phone's light and I looked all around just to see if there was an area where a screw might have come loose and, fell down, but it looked pretty solid down there. And, everywhere else in the vessel, I didn't see shit just laying around, where I could have just kicked it or, even if it had come down from upstairs, I would have heard that screw bouncing around, clink, clang, clang, ping, ping, pang. But no, I didn't. So anyways, it was just one of those, I don't know, kind of like how Wendy had mentioned on one of the last podcasts when we were at the Haunted Museum and something had grabbed your badge.
Yeah.
That was a tour. Yes, it was a tour of the Haunted Museum. But again, you expect it to, one degree. But then when it happens, you're like, holy shit, that really just happened. What? Wait, come back. Can we talk? No, you're already
Exactly.
gone.
That's the craziest thing is that you recognize in that moment that someone's trying to get your attention. And so you're like, hello, I'm here.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I mean, we just wanted you to turn around.
They're like kids. We wanted you to turn around so we could sneak past you and go to the candy aisle or whatever it is that we were doing.
Because then, like, nothing else happens after that. And you're like, oh, darn. I was expecting, now, ooh, I woke them up.
So if the place really is as active as people say that it is, and I mean, I had an experience just going on the tour. They do paranormal investigations there. So hopefully once COVID is gone or we've figured out a cure or whatever the hell we're going to do with this stupid virus, we can hopefully go for a paranormal investigation there because I hope that they'll open it back up for the overnight stays, not for the tours. Obviously the tours are open. So, something to think about maybe one day in the future.
Yeah, I would love that. Not to say that we've done like everything. But, I mean, we've been to prisons, we've been to hospitals, we've stayed at haunted hotels.
I know we've done everything.
Yeah. But never a ship. And
No.
I love just touring those kinds of ships.
Yeah.
And usually at some point in time, I always get some kind of weird feeling because I do think they hold like some energy, even if it's just residual. Because there was like, lots of emotional energy put into that kind of place. So yeah, that would be really cool. I'm totally on board.
Sweet. Well, we'll put that on our list. So here we are now at the end of the month and going right on into November. Isn't it crazy to think about how Halloween and Election Day are so freaking close together?
I'm not sure I've ever noticed it before. And this year, I definitely did, mostly because we're on this podcast schedule. And so when I was thinking about, okay, so tonight we're recording, this episode is coming out on this day. And then I was like, motherfucker. The very next day, the world's going to like explode.
Yeah.
One or the other way. Everybody's so passionate on either side that I can't imagine what tomorrow will bring. I feel like there's no bother to even record my podcast after we record yours.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
I was kind of like, man, I don't even think I need to write this story very good because mine's coming out next week. I don't know if we'll even be here.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my
Not
gosh.
to be very dark, but...
I mean, you never know. It could go one way or the other. But you're right. I thought it was funny. I don't think about it that often. And I assume that it's just because it takes 4 years to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like on my mind. Usually Halloween is on my mind and that's it.
Right.
Halloween. But since the election has been on my mind a lot lately, I decided to take a look into what the White House could offer up for this week's podcast.
Is this what your story's on?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love this.
Oh, good. Well, sit down, get comfy, because I hit the fucking mother lode when I looked into this place.
That's what I've heard. So I'm so excited.
I found a UFO cover-up story.
Oh my God.
Then I found ghosts, spiritualism, and of course there's a curse. So like I said, get ready to get your fill because this place is going to feel like I hit you with a ton of bricks by the time you're done with this. You're going to be like, ugh, I need a drink after that story.
I imagine that's how we'll all feel on Wednesday, too.
Right, exactly. This is just a precursor to that, right? So let me start off by first telling you all about the 1952 Washington, D.C. UFO incident and how an investigation of this incredible encounter fueled some of the earliest conspiracy theories about a government plot to hide evidence of alien life.
Of course.
I know.
It's what they're good at.
End of the story. And I'm moving on. I don't even have to tell you the rest of it. At 11:40 p.m. on Saturday, July 19th, 1952, an air traffic controller at Washington National Airport named Edward Nugent spotted 7 objects on his radar. The objects were located 15 miles southwest of the city. No known aircraft were in the area, and the objects were not following any established flight paths. Nugent's superior, Harry Barnes, a senior air traffic controller at the airport, watched the objects on Nugent's radar scope. Following his sighting, he wrote, "We knew immediately that a very strange situation existed. Their movements were completely radical compared to those of any ordinary aircraft." Barnes called Howard Coughlin and Joe Zacco at the National Airport's radar-equipped control tower. They confirmed that not only was Nugent's radar working properly, but they also witnessed unidentified blips on their radar screen, and they also saw what they described as a bright light hovering in the sky. They said it took off, zooming away at an incredible speed, and Coughlin asked Zacco, "Did you see that? What the hell was that?" Yeah, man.
I mean, imagine your whole job is looking up at the sky all day and then something bizarre. You're like, no, okay.
I need to get these bad boys checked.
Right.
Because I don't know. Did I really just see that? At this point, other objects appeared in all sectors of the radar scope. But when they moved over the White House and the United States Capitol building, Barnes called Andrews Air Force Base. Although Andrews reported that they had no unusual objects on their radar, an airman soon called the base's control tower to report the sighting of a strange object. Airman, I think I'm putting the emphasis on the wrong part. It's probably just airman, not airman. Airman William Brady, who was in the tower, reported seeing an object which appeared to be like an orange ball of fire trailing a tail. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. As Brady tried to alert the other personnel in the tower, the strange object took off at an unbelievable speed.
We've heard that somewhere else before. It must have been over some kind of water or something. I think it happens in the Bermuda Triangle or something, where they just see like balls of fire that look like it has like a tail or something, and then poof.
A tail?
Off. Yeah, I've heard that before. So it's most definitely an alien.
Oh, okay, good. Again, we're solved. We got this one. So Staff Sergeant Charles Davenport also observed an orange-red light to the south and said the light would appear to stand still, then make an abrupt change in direction and altitude. This happened several times. At one point, both radar centers at National Airport and the radar at Andrews Air Force Base were tracking an object hovering over a radio beacon, though the object vanished in all 3 radar centers and all at the same time.
Poof.
Poof. They're also magicians. At 3 a.m., shortly before 2 United States Air Force F-94 Starfire jet fighters from Newcastle Air Force Base in Delaware arrived over Washington, all of the objects vanished from the radar at National Airport. However, when the jets ran low on fuel and left, guess what? The objects came back.
They're just fucking with them.
Yes, they are. That's exactly what I was thinking too. It's like just like the goblins. They're like, "Oh, you think you're going to go to sleep now?"
Tap, tap, tap on the window.
The objects were last detected by radar at 5:30 a.m. So check this out. There was already an official military intelligence program in place to collect information on UFO sightings just like this one. Opened in the 40s, Project Sign, which had originally been named Project Saucer, would investigate these kind of reports. Unfortunately, most of the reports that they would investigate turned out to be bullshit. They were hoaxes or misidentifications of known aircrafts or natural phenomenon. However, there were a few cases that remained unexplained. By 1952, the UFO Investigation Unit had changed their name once again, and this time it's one that you're more familiar with. Now known as Project Blue Book, and led by Captain Edward Ruppelt from the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Daytona, Ohio. But even though this sector of the military already existed, nobody bothered to tell Ruppelt about the sightings at DC.
What? Why?
Right, exactly. And you know how he found out? When he flew into Washington, D.C. a few days later, and he read about it in the news. Yeah, that's some bullshit.
Guys, I'm here. It's my whole fucking job.
My job. That's right. This is all I do. That's all I do day long, every day. And you're withholding this information from me?
Well, not withholding. They told the news.
So yeah, it kind of got out because all of these people had seen things and they're talking and somebody's like, whoa, what? Hold on a minute. What's your story, brah? And he wrote it down and it's now in the news.
Right.
So yeah, somebody was talking, just not to him. Upon arrival in D.C., Ruppelt tried to get out to National and to Andrews in order to interview the radar operators and air traffic controllers, but he was denied by his superiors, and he ended up flying back to Ohio with nothing.
What? Okay. Now that really doesn't make any sense.
It stinks.
They're keeping secrets from the department that's supposed to investigate that is a part of their government. So yeah, right? They keep secrets from each other within. Well, I'm not surprised by that. But...
Right. That's our government, guys. The very next Saturday, the UFOs were back over the nation's capital. But guess who again was last to find out? That's right. Always a bridesmaid, never the bride.
Starting to think maybe he's bad at his job.
He's just always on the toilet, like when they're trying to get a hold of him.
He missed that phone call.
They didn't have answering machines back then. So he's like, I guess they'll call back. They didn't have, what is it, star 68, star 69, whatever, call back.
Yeah.
It was like, they'll call me back. Again, Ruppelt found out after he got a call from a reporter looking for answers from the military's UFO unit. He immediately called on two Air Force colleagues. He's like, wait a minute, let me get my...
He dialed up the UFO.
Here I am, like they didn't have answering machines back then, but he could phone
home. Yeah. Hey, was that you guys?
Oh, my mouth gets me every time. So he calls 2 Air Force colleagues to check out the situation at National. The same radar blips had returned, but at this time, radar operators had questioned whether the dozens or so objects on their screens were being caused by a temperature inversion. This is a common phenomenon in DC's hot, muggy summer months. A temperature inversion occurs when a layer of warm air forms in the low atmosphere, trapping cooler air beneath it. Radar signals can bounce off this layer at shallow angles and mistakenly show near-ground objects as appearing in the sky. Ruppelt's Air Force colleagues, however, were completely convinced that the objects on the radar screen were not mirages, and they were in fact solid aircraft. To be safe, 2 more F-94 jets pursued the unidentified targets that appeared on the radar screens at both National and Andrews. The jets raced to the locations targeted by radar, only for the blips to vanish as they approached. Finally, one of the jet pilots caught sight of a bright light in the distance and gave chase. And he said, I tried to make contact with the bogies below 1,000 feet. I saw several bright lights. I was at a maximum speed, but even then I had no closing speed. I ceased chasing them because I saw no chance of overtaking them. The next day, newspaper headlines across America screamed, "Saucers swarm over Capitol," and "Jet chases DC sky ghosts." I love it, right? That's a good one.
That's a good title.
I would have bought those magazines. I'd been like, I'll take that one and I'll take that one. The publicity and public panic over the sightings were so great that President Harry Truman himself asked aides to get answers. When they called Ruppelt, he said it could have been caused by a temperature inversion, but that more investigation was needed to fully explain both the radar images and credible eyewitness accounts. Well, what Ruppelt had unknowingly done was hand over an answer on a silver platter, because before an in-depth investigation could take place, the Air Force called a press conference and had decided without consulting Ruppelt or Project Blue Book that the best response to these sightings was to feed the press and the public an easy-to-swallow explanation.
Right.
Yeah.
No, of course. I mean, I'm not surprised that they didn't do that immediately. But he could still continue his investigation, that just behind like closed doors, right?
Well, you would think so. During the press conference, they dodged any specific questions about where the pilots and the radar operators had actually seen in the skies over the Capitol. Major General John Sanford came back again and again, blaming this temperature inversion theory. Never mind that Ruppelt had come to the opposite conclusion and that he had requested an in-depth investigation that was denied.
Right. Also, didn't you say this happened overnight? Like, I don't know anything, but this is now making me think that we need like a meteorologist to come ghost hunting with us or something. Yes. Wouldn't that be cool?
Oh, that would be great. I love that idea.
We got to get one of them on a ghost team, you know, so something happens, we're like, check them real quick.
All right. Check them real quick.
Is this possible at all, you know, some kind of weather thing?
I'm going to following all of them on Instagram and Facebook right now just to see which one of them are ghosts and aliens and all of that. Get them on our side.
But, I mean, like, you wouldn't expect that these things would be happening at night. Like, I know it could be muggy and hot and everything, but there's not like a whole lot of light or anything like that. And then also the temperature should drop overnight. So all of this, I would be in the press conference, bullshit in the background.
Exactly. Yeah, right. With your megaphone. Wait, I have more questions.
And they'd kick me out.
To Ruppelt's disappointment, the Air Force's press conference worked exactly as they had planned. The papers reported the temperature inversion story, and the public largely seemed to accept that. Many had actually accused the Air Force and Project Blue Book investigators of devious behavior and secret knowledge. However, the exact phrase from the radar operator who mentioned the inversion was made public years later, along with all of the Project Blue Book documents in 1985. The operator stated, and I quote, "Inversions happen. We know what inversions look like. This is not an inversion. This is not the same thing at all." The end.
Right, because how long had he been at his job?
Right. That's actually one of the biggest problems here, is because when the government rushes out there to just calm everyone's nerves, say, nope, it's not what you think it is. This is what it is. It makes all these guys that are in these positions look like they're kind of full of shit. Right?
Yeah, like, or should we drug test you? You know, what was going on that night that all of a sudden you're freaking out about this?
Right. And not just you, and not just you and you, and not just you and you. I mean, it was like every motherfucker that was there, right? I mean, it's such bullshit, man. Never before or after did Project Blue Book and the Air Force undergo such a tidal wave of UFO reports. Ruppelt left Blue Book in February of 1953. This is the next year. But he left because he was temporarily reassigned. He did return a few months later to find that his staff had been reduced from more than 10 to only 2 subordinates. So you had 10 people working with you on these UFO stories. Now you got 2, and this guy's only kind of part-time. You know, whatever. So, yeah, he was pretty much frustrated. He suggested that the Air Defense Command Unit be charged with UFO investigations, and by 1969, Project Blue Book was terminated altogether. So, thus, the Washington UFO flap, which is another name for this incident, fades into the background as DC's most well-known UFO cover-up story. And since I'm speaking of an event that occurred during President Truman's term, let me also tell you about another incident that he got to experience a little bit more personally. This one was of a ghostly nature. In Truman's own words, taken straight from the letters he ended up writing to his wife, which are now in the archives of his presidential library and museum, He said that he heard the sound of knocking against his bedroom door one night, which woke him up out of bed. And I quote, I jumped up and put on my bathrobe, opened the door, and no one was there. Yeah, he's like, I don't want no one to see all of this.
I mean, he probably had pajamas on, I would think. Like, because, I mean, who lives at the White House and is sleeping like nude or in your underwear?
Yeah, right. Maybe President Truman.
I mean, I don't think Donald Trump would give a shit. So
right,
maybe. But I mean, you know, there's constant people there. So
yes, always.
They could bust in that room anytime. But okay, so he jumps up.
He jumps up, gets on his bathrobe. He opens up the door and no one was there. Went out and looked up and down the hall, looked in your room and Margie's, still no one. Went back to bed and locked the doors, and there were footsteps in your room whose door I'd left open. Jumped and looked, and still there was no one there. He says, the damn place is haunted, sure as shooting.
He's so cute. That's
He's
why
adorable.
he was into that alien story, because he's a believer.
Yeah, he was like, don't get Project Blue Book involved. Actually, hand me the files. Let me take a peek at that.
I want to read all about it.
I think so.
Yeah, I bet. But we don't know what room he sleeps in, do we?
No, I didn't have that information. Just to finish his letter, he said, Secret Service said not even a watchman was up there at that hour. He says, you and Margie had better come back and protect me before some of these ghosts carry me off. After Truman, he was cute. After Truman wrote his wife about the knocks on his door, the president's daughter wrote him back. Margaret Truman, in a 1986 biography of her mother, said that she and her mom were skeptical of the existence of ghosts, presidential or otherwise, and she wrote back to her father saying so. She's like, President Dad, you need to get your shit together.
You're running the country.
You're
scared of a ghost in your house.
Well, he replied to her, and he said, I'm sure they're here, and I'm not so much alarmed at meeting up with any of them. I'm sure old Andrew Jackson could give me good advice and probably teach me good swear words. And I'm sure old Grover Cleveland could tell me some choice remarks to make to some political leaders. So I won't lock my doors or bar them either. If any of the old coots in the pictures out in the hall want to come out of their frames for a friendly chat. Yes. Can we have him back? I just love how colorful he is. So, as you may have already noticed, I've moved on to the ghostly section of my story. And aside from the few presidents that were ever willing to admit that the White House was haunted, there are many more first ladies that seem to not have any fears about admitting to this. Some of these women even confirmed that they'd consulted spiritual mediums and had their palms read. They had also had conducted seances to communicate with the dead. So, let me first tell you about the wife of our 14th president, Franklin Pierce. This would be Jane Pierce. Now, Jane had been obsessed with death and illness from a very young age. She often wrote metaphysical letters to her family members discussing mortality and the afterlife. When she suffered the tragic loss of their son Benny shortly after her husband's inauguration in March of 1853, she made it her mission in life to reconnect with her son. The family had been traveling by train in Massachusetts when the train derailed and their car was overturned.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. The 11-year-old Benny's skull had been crushed, though it was not immediately clear. Both Jane and Franklin caught sight of their little boy and assumed that he was in shock or asleep. His hat had been in place where they could not see the damage right away. And little Benny was the only fatality in this accident.
Oh my God, that's horrible.
And this tragedy was something that Jane was never able to recover from. The celebration of Pierce's victory had been overshadowed by this loss. To make things even more tragic, they had already lost their other children years before. This led Jane Pierce to being in a state of constant depression. She wore black every day, mourning the death of her children, locking herself away in her room in the White House so that she could slip deeper and deeper into her depression. Jane started obsessing with trying to communicate with her son from beyond the grave. The first thing she did was write a cathartic letter to her deceased child, Benny. In this very heartbroken letter, Jane pleaded to Benny. She would apologize for being a terrible mother to him and write how she wished that he could come back to her. She became more and more determined that there was a possible way of reconnecting with her son. So she sought out the most famous people at the time, known for their ability to connect with the deceased. And this was the Fox sisters. The Fox sisters, who were three sisters from New York, Leah, Margaret or Maggie, and Kate Fox, made a career out of speaking with the dead from a very young age through the spirits knocking or rapping on furniture and walls in response to questions. As children, the murdered corpse of a traveling salesman was said to have been discovered underneath their home, which was confirmed by asking the spirits to spell out the location. The skeleton that was actually found under their house, however, was actually a construction of several different corpses and included the bones of a chicken.
These fucking bitches.
It's actually pretty crazy how they're connected to these stories.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were famous for it. So, of course, you're in a high position or whatever, you're going to ask for the best. But just people didn't know that they were so full of shit. But that's so low down.
Yeah.
Like piecing a body together just to sell your story.
Yeah. And I looked into it. So I guess the original house had burnt down. So they reconstructed the house. It's a historic site and wherever it is. I can't remember where it is. But they reconstructed the house to look pretty much how the house did when the Fox sisters' family was all there. They have, I think, they've saved like the original family Bible. So that one piece of history is there within the house and it's on the land. It's at the spot where their whole fame kind of originated, where they came up with all of these stories about this poor salesman. They even gave the poor guy a name. It just so happened that there was some guy, I think, in the state with the same name that they put out like a witch hunt for him as the murderer of the salesman underneath their house. I mean, it was just such an ordeal. But yeah, so that's the Fox sisters, ladies and gentlemen, and if you haven't been introduced to them yet. So they were fairly famous by the time the First Lady called on them to perform seances in the White House. And though not much is known about the actual White House seance, Jane Pierce wrote to her sister that her son began appearing to her in her dreams after their seance. Though the dreams had been so real to Jane Pierce that she finally felt some comfort since her son's passing, even though it wasn't lasting. And at the conclusion of her husband's presidency, the couple made a prolonged trip in search of health for her. Though the quest was unsuccessful and having contracting tuberculosis, the couple came home to New Hampshire to be near family and friends until Jane's death in 1863. She was buried near Benny's grave at the Old North Cemetery in Concord, which is apparently haunted. And among the things that you can find there, a ghost dog is one of them. And there is a woman that has been seen wearing a colonial era outfit and carrying a lantern. Sure, I know what you're thinking. It sounds like it might be Jane, right? Nope. New England, watching over the dead, carrying a lantern. Come on. That's got to be our Laka Waka, right? So just come on. Got to be. Now, even though Jane said that Benny had appeared to her in her dreams, there are others that feel his spirit had actually come through and stayed at the White House. So now I must skip over to President Taft, who was actually our 27th president. I'm bringing him up now simply because he was said to have been terrified by the spirit of a small boy who terrorized the living. Spirit was actually referred to as the Thing, and Taft forbade any mention of him.
Wow.
He kind of seemed like a dick.
No, he's fucking scared shitless, man.
This is interesting. By July 1911, reports of a White House ghost were confirmed in a public record by Major Archie Butt. Like, his name is B-U-T-T.
Yeah.
Don't pause. That's his name. He was the military aide to the president, and Butt wrote this letter to his sister. Maybe I should just call him Major Archie. That's probably better, right? So Major Archie wrote this to his sister. It seems that the White House is haunted. This was the most interesting piece of news to me, for it seemed to me to be the only thing wanting to make the White House the most interesting spot in the United States. It's just a really long way of saying this place is fucking haunted.
Well, it almost sounds like he's also saying this place would be boring if it wasn't haunted.
Right, in a very eloquent manner. That's exactly what I read too. The ghost, it seems, is a young boy from its description. The housekeeper, a spooky little person herself, informs me that he has been felt more often than he has been seen. But when I remonstrated with her that ghosts have not the sense of touch, at least those self-respecting ghosts of which I have heard, she insisted that it was the manifestation of the Thing which caused such fright among the servants. I mean, this dude should have wrote stories. I love it. He's like Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah, he's hilarious.
He is, right? All these guys are. Helen Taft's personal maid claimed not just to have felt the ghost, but to have seen the spectral figure of a young boy in early teens with light, untidy hair and sad blue eyes. So now I'm going to send you a picture of little Benny Pierce. He's actually standing next to his mom, Jane Pierce, in the picture that I just sent you. Because I thought the thing that stood out to me was in this picture, how his hair kind of seems like a bit of a mess. And one of the descriptions of the young boy is that he has untidy hair.
Yeah.
This next picture that I'm going to send you, it's the same child. It's a grainier picture. It looks like somebody copied an image and copied an image and copied an image. The picture's just kind of gotten distorted. And I think that this might have been an image in a frame that somebody like took a picture of. So that's why it looks really kind of shot.
Yeah.
But that would be our little Benny.
So they described him as like a teen or whatever, but I could see where they would, misunderstand that.
Yeah.
Or, I think we've discussed this before, that maybe ghosts could appear how they want to kind of thing. I don't really know how, but I think you could confuse this for an older child.
Yes, you could. I can do that. I'm terrible with placing kids in ages. I mean, I see a kid and I'm like, wow, he's grown. What is he, like 16? And they're like, no, he's 11. I mean, I'm bad with numbers. And, you don't see a kid for a couple of days and they do look like they've just like
shot up. Yeah, I get that.
So the president's immediate response, according to Major Archie Butt, was towering rage, and he was terrified the story would leak to the press, and in the end it didn't. It only actually came to light with the publication of Butt's letters in 1930.
Butt's letters.
Butt's letters.
So I think he was slightly embarrassed, the president, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And probably thought everybody would think he's a kook if he believes in it. And that's why he was like, no, don't talk about it. We don't believe in that stuff. And he was probably also scared.
Yeah, I think so. He said that he was terrified. So I would think so. The Thing, as it was called during Taft's term, may have been the son of Julia Pierce in spirit form, or maybe it wasn't. William Wallace Lincoln, the son of President Abraham Lincoln and Mary Todd Lincoln, passed away February 20th, 1862, of a typhoid-like condition. Actually, when Jane Pierce found out about their tragic loss, she reached out to Mary Todd Lincoln to offer her condolences and a little support. She shared the story of her successful seance with the Fox sisters, and as Mary was also a mourning mother, obviously, she wanted to have the same kind of experience. Mary Todd began visiting trance mediums in a desperate attempt to contact her dearly departed son, and it seems that she too made contact. One evening, Mary rushed into the room of her half-sister, exclaiming, "He lives, Emily! He comes to me every night and stands at the foot of my bed with the same sweet, adorable smile he always had. He does not always come alone. Little Eddie," who was Edward Baker Lincoln, I guess he was 3 when he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But little Eddie is sometimes with him, and twice he has come with our brother Alec. He tells me he loves his Uncle Alec and is with him most of the time. You cannot dream of the comfort this gives me when I thought of my little son in immensity, alone, without his mother to direct him, no one to hold his little hand in loving guidance. It nearly broke my heart. So just in case, because there is a little boy there, they don't know who it is. One guy says it's The Thing, but because Mary Todd Lincoln was so obsessed with speaking to her son, and she also said that he appeared, I went and found an image of him. So, he also looks to be about the same age, same height, but obviously the hair and eye color was different than what was described.
Yeah, his hair is very clean cut.
Yeah.
And I would say he looks younger because he has got that round baby face. The other kid, the reason it's easier
slimmer
to believe that he's a teenager, he's more mature because he has a slender face.
Yeah. So grief certainly led the First Lady to embrace the supernatural, repeatedly consulting with mediums, men and women who claimed to contact the spirits of the dead through entering a trance-like state in the wake of Willie's passing, which had only intensified for her following the assassination of her husband. So, speaking of Lincoln's assassination, some have sworn that they've heard the spirit of Annie Surratt knocking at the front doors, pleading for the release of her mother, who was Mary Surratt, which, as you know, was convicted of playing the role in Lincoln's assassination and was later hanged. Knocking at the front doors of the White House, though. I mean, come on. That's got to really piss off those Secret Service agents, right? Nobody should be at the front door. Who's out there playing games with me? What? I love it.
I wonder if they have a protocol for that.
Right.
When they're hiring them on, like, they're moving up. You're going to the White House. You're going to be in charge. You're watching the front door. Now, listen, sometimes the front door knocks and nobody's there. Don't fire at it, okay?
Oh, my God. Yeah. Don't pull out your firearm. There might be tours.
Just yet.
That would be a great protocol to find. I need to scour the internet and see if that actually exists. Like, training for the Secret Service for the White House because this place is so fucking haunted. They've got to have a rundown of the shit that goes on here and just be like, this happens. Don't be calling your superior. Don't be drawing your weapon. Things like that.
Yeah, I imagine that they explained it a little differently, though. They're just like, old house could make some noises. You might see little ghost children. I mean, you might see things. You might hear things. Don't just get all trigger happy, okay?
Well, now you've given me something to think about. I'm going to have to look and see if that exists. So now let me tell you about First Lady Julia Gardner Tyler, who wasn't just interested in the occult or reading horoscopes. She fully believed that she had full-blown psychic powers. We are now going back to the 10th president of the United States, John Tyler.
I love all these women, these first ladies that are way into it, I mean, it's just like, imagine if Biden's wife, she was just like, yeah, I love ghosts. I'm into aliens. I'm going to be doing some seances for Halloween. I mean, this would not fly with the voters these days. But back then, I guess the women were kind of like, I mean, they probably didn't know anything about them except for she looks pretty.
I love how vocal they were about these because we wouldn't have these stories today to, actually trace back where something might be coming from. I mean, you can't really investigate the White House to the best of my knowledge, so you have to rely on these stories as what they are. But something I actually left out of my story, because this is a very long story, but since you brought it up, I have to mention it now. Actually, Hillary Clinton claimed that she would get into conversations with the ghost of Eleanor Roosevelt. And so that's kind of bringing it almost up to present day, right?
Right, yeah.
And they did. They were just like, no, Hillary Clinton's just a little silly. Like, they tried to write it off right away. They were just like, what is she? Keep her mouth shut.
One too many glasses of wine that night. Don't pay attention to her.
Don't pay any attention to her. They did. They were like right away trying to just like sweep it under the rug too. So I was like, oh my God, that's funny. So now we're going back to the 10th president of the United States. That's John Tyler. After his wife passed away from a tragic illness, he moved on just kind of quickly. He was friends with the wealthy Gardner family from Long Island, and he met 22-year-old Julia Gardner with the intention of setting her up with his son, John Tyler Jr. Apparently, both men were super quick to move on because John Jr. was only in the beginning stages of getting divorced when his dad was fixing him up with somebody else.
Oh my gosh.
I really think that he was like, this girl's a keeper. Somebody, please. We got to keep her. Somebody. So anyways, this was in 1844, and hundreds of people were all gathered around to see the christening of a new ship called the USS Princeton. Suddenly, there was a massive explosion that ended up killing Julia's father, David. Well, President Tyler was actually there to comfort her, and as such, she ended up falling in love with President Tyler instead of his son. It was just 5 months after his first wife's death, but he eloped with Julia, marrying her in a private ceremony. Of course, the press went wild over the president marrying a woman who was 30 years younger than him. Mm-hmm. Hey now, age is nothing but a number. But check this out. Whether President Tyler knew it or not, Julia claimed to have extrasensory perception. That's ESP, y'all. She also said that she could levitate objects and summon ghosts at will.
Oh, she was extra. I bet she kept that quiet until after he put a ring on it. She's like, by the way, I'm kooky as fuck.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think she sprung that on him after the fact. Everything was signed over and now her name was his name and all that. She's a smart cookie. At one seance, she apparently made the table levitate. Julia's sister attested to her powers, writing to her mother saying that she was not afraid, but rather in awe of the things she could do. After retiring, the couple moved into their sprawling plantation, which is named Sherwood Forest, which is in Virginia, and had also been owned at different times by President William Henry Harrison. That one's going to trip me up all night. It's a tough one. But in 1862, Mrs. Tyler's husband had been gone for a few days. The 41-year-old mother of 7 kids, all under the age of 15.
Hey, I saw something just the other day about a living descendant from a president. I wonder if it was this one.
It could be.
But I remember he had like a bunch of children with his first wife, and then he had a bunch with the next one too. So in total, he had like 15 kids. And so there's still some living descendant, direct descendant from him. Anyways, I just happened to see that the other day. So it's funny that you brought that up.
Even if you find out later that it was a completely different guy, a different story, that does exist within the story, because President Tyler was 77 when he had his infant child. So his infant child, which was like of his 7 with Julia. So, he ended up dying. So then when his infant child is now 77, he ends up having his last baby at like the age of like 70 something too. So actually President Tyler's like grandson, or maybe great grandson. It's not like great. It's like just his great grandson, because these guys got it on until they were old as shit and making babies like way on up in life.
Yeah.
So like, I think it's just his great grandson, or his grandson still owns that house that I was just talking about, the Sherwood Forest. So it could be the same guy. But so the 41-year-old mother of 7, she wakes up from her sleep. She had been frightened by a terrible dream that her husband had suffered a stroke and died. The dream had been so real that Julia was unable to calm her nerves and decided to see for herself. She flagged the James River steamboat that regularly passed by their plantation, took the 2-hour road trip to... No, took the 2-hour trip. It's not obviously a road trip. She took the 2-hour trip to Richmond and went immediately to Tyler's hotel. She was totally relieved to find him not only alive, but in good health and spirits. They had supper together, and Julia prepared to return home the following day. But the next morning, as Tyler was starting to wash and dress, he collapsed, having a massive stroke, and he died within hours. And it played out exactly as Julia had dreamt it would.
How crazy, but also how sweet.
That she was there?
Yeah, that they got to spend the last day together. Imagine if they had cell phones then, she would have just texted, "You okay?" He would have been like, "Yeah," and she'd be like, "Okay," and went about her day.
Okay, everything's fine. You're right. This wouldn't have been there for them. So Julia lived out the last of her years in Richmond, and after her death in 1889, she was buried there at her husband's side. But one thing that I left out, the plantation that they moved to and retired in is also a haunted location. The spirit there is known as the Gray Lady, or the Lady in Gray. I've seen it both ways, and was most likely a servant from the 18th century. So clearly, that's not our first lady.
No.
That means that the plantation was haunted prior to them getting there. Isn't that crazy? Not only does this bitch have ESP, but she's like, I want that one right there. Because it's haunted. She knows the shit. But since then, Julia's spirit has been seen there too. Believe it or not, tidying up around the old furniture that also only appears in ghostly form.
Wait, the furniture?
Yep.
There's ghost furniture.
Yes. Yes. Hold on. Julia was said to really like dolphins, and these particular pieces of furniture, whatever it is, I think it's just one cabinet or something. I don't have the fancy term. It's a fancy cabinet, but that piece of furniture had dolphins carved into the wood.
Quick question. Where did she ever see a dolphin to fall in love with it?
I don't know. Virginia has dolphins, don't they?
They must. And I just don't know this.
When she was on that dinghy or whatever she had taken, her road trip over to Richmond.
Along the river?
She flagged the James River steamboat. Yeah, that's what it was. She was on, river dolphins.
River dolphins. Okay.
But there are also reports that the spectral form of John Tyler has been seen and appears proposing to Julia. This happens to take place in the Blue Room at the White House. And I imagine that was just a very good memory for Julia. She seems to have been very much in love with her husband. So now, about this curse. Well, that would be Tecumseh's curse, otherwise known as the Curse of Tippecanoe. And it stemmed from an 1809 dispute between U.S. President William Henry Harrison and Shawnee Indian leader Tecumseh. See, I didn't trip up that time. I just said it very slowly. Many believe that the curse is the reason that Harrison and every following president up to Kennedy, who was elected in a year ending in 0, died while in office.
Wow.
Let me tell you why. In 1840, William Henry Harrison, he won the presidency with the slogan, Tippecanoe and Tyler too, which referenced Harrison's role in the American victory at the Battle of Tippecanoe in 1811. While Tecumseh was the leader of the Shawnee, the opposing side in the battle, his hatred for Harrison actually went back a few years. Yeah, he was a bit of a grudge holder.
Well, I mean, I'm sure with good reason.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah. So, while the governor of the Indiana Territory, Harrison negotiated a treaty with Native Americans in which the Shawnee ceded large tracts of land to the U.S. government. Bam! It's gone, just like that. So, extremely angered by what he considered Harrison's unfair tactics in negotiating the deal, Tecumseh and his brother organized local tribes and attacked Harrison's army, thus starting the Battle of Tippecanoe. During the War of 1812, Harrison further reinforced his anti-native reputation when he defeated the British and the tribes that aided them at the Battle of the Thames. This additional defeat and the loss of more land to the American government is really what drove Tecumseh's brother, who was known by the Shawnee as the Prophet.
Oh, wow.
Look, if I've got a strong feeling towards somebody and their brother happens to have a nickname like that, I would just do my best. I'd maybe get him brownies, flowers, like make things peaceful. Just when your brother's known by a name like that's something serious, you go the extra mile. You be kind.
Take him seriously, yes.
So, yeah, he basically got his brother to place a curse of death on all future presidents elected in years ending in a 0. I don't know why it was so specific, but who knows? Maybe you have to be really specific for that thing to work. Like, I don't know, when your genie grants you those 3 wishes.
Yeah, you do. You have to be really specific. They could take it another way. What's it like? Be careful what you wish for. So if you're not really detailed, why curse everybody else though?
Yeah, right.
Wow, I am just now piecing this together though, that this year ends in a 0.
Yeah, I was getting to that.
I probably should have picked that up like a minute ago, but I'm a little slow. Sorry.
Now you see, like, the urgency for me to do the story was there.
So you called it.
And I'm no prophet. I'm just telling you the story. So Harrison was elected president with almost a 53% of the vote, but he barely had a chance to settle into office before his death. After delivering a very long inaugural address on a cold and windy day, he was stuck in a rainstorm and caught a serious cold, which turned into the severe pneumonia infection that killed him only 30 days later. Harrison's inauguration was on March 4th, and he died on April 4th, 1841. His death was the first in a series of tragedies that struck presidents winning an election at the start of a new decade, a pattern that would become known as Tecumseh's curse, or as I said earlier, the curse of Tippecanoe. And you may have already guessed, William Henry Harrison was our first U.S. president to pass away in the White House. And I don't think he was all that happy about it either. Just a few years after his death, suddenly banging noises started coming from the 3rd floor attic. The servants were sent up there to figure out what the hell was going on, so they investigated it, looking for signs of damage due to water, weather, whatever, animals, but they found nothing. There was nothing up there.
Just thinking like the White House raccoon,
I know.
Just moved it.
It's a little black mask.
Yeah.
He's a burglar. Oh, he's actually a raccoon. However, an apparition was seen by one of the servants who confirmed that it was very distinctively the former president, describing him as, I can't even say it, describing him as horse-faced Harrison.
Oh, they did not like him.
Yeah, they did not like him. So, horse-faced Harrison, he is only haunting the attic for whatever reason. He hasn't made his way out of there, and maybe that was just a little extra to that curse that the prophet squeezed in for his own personal enjoyment, You know how I love to speculate, but
yes, I mean, why is he just stuck in the fucking attic? And he seems mad about it too. So
he's not happy. He's up there for all eternity. Anyways, since we are in an election year ending in 0, let us hope that Tecumseh is finally done with his curses.
Well, we don't know which way it will go, so...
Oh, yes.
50-50 is all I'm saying. Guys, listen. If it doesn't go well tomorrow, and on Wednesday morning you wake up and you just don't know how you're going to make it through 4 more years, just remember this curse.
This curse,
yes.
Right?
And keep faith. And we'll all make t-shirts and everything.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Tecumseh's curse.
Pray to those gods. And yeah.
Right.
So we have a backup plan.
So just to wrap up this podcast, I do have a few more quick stories to give you before I go. Andrew Jackson's spirit reportedly likes to storm through the house, cursing all the way. He's such a fun guy. And his spirit is one that's referenced over and over again. So I guess he does this a lot. I've seen his story running up and down the halls, cursing almost every time I looked for haunted stories about the White House. And it's from different perspectives every time. His bedroom during this presidency was the Rose Room. And this is another place that he's been heard. But this time he's not stomping around and cursing. He's actually laughing. And it's like such a gut wrenching laugh that's how it's been reported. So I don't know if he's like running up and down the halls, like all pissed off and cussing. And then he goes into the room and he's like, ha ha ha, I got him again, guys. Yeah.
He's like, I made them piss their pants.
I did. Did you see the look on their face? Knee slapper. So then there's Dolly Madison, who was the first lady to President James Madison. She's another one that's been seen in multiple places. First Lady Edith Wilson, wife to President Woodrow Wilson, said that as she was standing on the south lawn of the White House and considering hiring gardeners to completely change the landscape, she claimed to see the apparition of Dolly Madison. Her ghost urged her not to change anything because she dearly loved the rose garden.
Aww.
No, she's like, please. And roses are actually kind of hard to grow. So like, give them a chance, lady.
I wonder if she listened to her.
I think so. Yeah, she was like, oh, fuck, no. Okay, cool. We'll keep them roses. Dolly Madison has also been seen at the Octagon House in D.C., which was used as the temporary White House for her and her husband after the British forces burned the White House. Yet another location that could have its own podcast because there's so much shit going on there. So keep that in the back of your head. And last, but certainly not least, I could not walk away from the story without any mention of Lincoln's ghost. Even though he has been brought up on the past podcasts and Wendy even told us all about his story, I have a teeny bit to add. His is a spirit often reportedly seen at the White House and has often been seen by many who are simply taking a tour at the White House.
Nice.
Of all the spirits that you might actually get to see there, it's his.
Win-win.
It is such a
I've
win-win.
never wanted to tour the White House until now.
Until now. And check this out. Lincoln's spirit seems to be most commonly spotted when the country is deeply divided or there is a strong tension within the country. Perhaps, yes, I know. Now's the time. Perhaps his ghost is conjured forth in times that in some ways mirrored the stress of the looming Civil War. Oh, and here we are, guys. Don't know if they're doing tours of the White House currently because of COVID, but I think if you can, now is the time to go and take that fucking tour.
Yeah.
Just like in the USS Salem. I mean, it could be nobody there and you could still get in and then bam, there's Abe Lincoln. I mean, that's the ghost to see.
That could be nice. I bet they are not doing tours though. Especially since the president himself, is passing COVID around. So
I don't know. It made me want to look into it because he seemed to be a little bit lenient on the whole mask wearing situation. So I figured if he was lenient about that, he might be lenient on.
Yeah, it's no big deal, right?
Come on in. You want to take a tour? Take a chance. Let's go. So I am sorry that this episode ran a bit long, but there was so much that I had to tell you. And guess what? There are so many more ghost stories out there about the White House that I actually had to leave some out. Like I mentioned a little while into the story, I'm like, okay, well, I cut this part out, but let me just tell you, here's a little tidbit. There's still oodles and oodles more ghost stories out there. And of course there is. This is a house that has had so much history, dramatic history, emotions. Yeah. I mean, it's just like soaked. It's absorbed into the earth there. I mean, yeah, it makes sense that this place would be super haunted. So maybe someday in the future, the White House will open up for paranormal investigations. Wouldn't that be the best? Write your senators now.
I don't know where I saw it. Maybe I imagined it, but it was like a week ago or something. There was something on social media somewhere that Zach Bagans posted that they've been trying to get into this location for 4 years and the White House was in the background.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. So I might have sent that to you because I saw it and I was just like, oh no, the president just got COVID. I hope that the Ghost Adventures didn't go into the White House.
Oh, you did send that to me. That was you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how I saw it.
And then you were like, oh, I hope they do get in because I want to see what they captured. And I'm like, fuck. And I say, fuck, because I had been working on the White House story because of when this episode releases. I know that this is in lieu of the election.
Right.
But I had a battle with myself because I'm like, is everyone going to be tired of hearing about the presidents? Is everyone going to be tired about hearing about the White House? Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should be like the cool person that goes to the Tool concert wearing an Alice in Chains t-shirt instead. You can't go to like the Tool concert wearing a Tool shirt because you're like, you're that person. So that's why I didn't know. So when I sent that to you and you reacted the way that you did, I was like, oh, fuck, maybe I should do that story then. So I again turned to my crystal ball my husband, and I said, look, this is the story that I've been working on, but I've gone back and forth on it for like a month now. And I started writing three other stories. Three other stories. And I told him this is what I was doing. And then I've done this. And I think that this is the way I should go. And he's just like, no, you should totally do the White House story. I'm like, you really think so? He's like, your best friend just basically went bananas over a story about it. That should be clue enough. And I'm like, okay, fine. So, it's one that you look into and it's like story after story after story after story. There's just so much here. And I don't know if Ghost Adventures ever got in. I didn't see anything else about it, but yeah, it was kind of like that would be a fucking awesome investigation.
Yes, I really hope that they did. I hope that was a real thing. Might have not been at all. And as paranoid as Zach is about germs,
yeah,
I don't think he's going to want to go there, but whatever. It'd be cool to see somebody go in and investigate it. You absolutely had to do this story because, if anything, because of that curse. Because now you bring hope to people like us, I should say. If we have supporters on the other side of things, then obviously, just skip ahead. You don't want to hear this, but people like us will feel okay if Tuesday doesn't go our way. So you've given hope just in case. And not so much if it goes the other way, I guess. Actually, never mind. We won't get involved in that. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I got you, though. I got you.
You know what I'm saying.
So I'm happy that you liked it. I had to fight myself, too, on Lincoln because you've done a whole episode, on stories about him. So I didn't want to, just relive it. He's all over the place, man. And I know you wouldn't mind because you love the stories, too. But I would just recommend to our listeners who are like, what else about that Lincoln? To go back onto some of our past episodes. I believe the Lincoln episode that I'm referring to is called If Work Could See My Google Searches.
Yeah.
So go back and check that episode out and hear more about Lincoln and also some other crazy things that are going on. That's a really good episode. So if you liked this show, please leave us a little feedback. Hit that like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Share the show. Got a spooky story that you want us to tell or maybe a location that you want to hear about? Have you visited the White House? Have you seen Abe Lincoln? Just write to us at creaturesofthenight.paranormal@gmail.com, or you can DM us on any of our socials. We're on Instagram as COTN_paranormal, Facebook and Twitter as COTN paranormal. We would love to hear from you, especially, like I said, if you have any stories related to the show, because I think that'd be bananas.
I would love it.
If you're looking for any way whatsoever to support our show, basically following us, subscribing to us is one huge way. We would really appreciate that. But we also have this amazing store where we sell shirts, among other things. There's great candles there. There are these boards that say yes, yes, no, no. You use a pendulum and you can just sit there like you're one of the first ladies in the White House, just talking to the spirits all night long. You just go to the Spirit Emporium, see the stuff that we've procured for you, and just hit that add to the cart and buy, and boom, you get something amazing in the mail.
Bam.
Bam. It's on Etsy now. So check us out, support our show, and yeah, that'd be great. So that's all that I have.
Obviously loved every minute of this. You saw my face from the very beginning.
I know. I saw the jazz hands.
I don't know why I get so excited about these things, but it is a place that fascinates me. I guess because it does have such a long history and there's all these people, like you've said before, you don't expect them to be into ghosts or they're not there for that. They're just living their lives trying to work a job. And then there's these other prominent spirits, like our children or family members of theirs, that are just disrupting their day.
Right?
The whole thing just fascinates me. I love the stories that come out of the White House. Didn't know anything about the aliens. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Or this curse. So I'm really excited about that one too.
Oh, cool. Well, I've got one more thing to add to all of this. When I started doing a lot of research on this story and I was reading about Julia Pierce, and of course I found out that she was a native of New Hampshire and she's buried here, and so is her husband. Obviously, I had to go and take a tour. I went to the cemetery, which is gorgeous, beautiful cemetery. They've got their stones are in a separate enclosed gated area. And then there's tombstones all around. And I went and visited it, and someone had sprinkled these little rocks everywhere, like painted rocks.
Aw.
And look, I came home with one. Check this out.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
It's the thing from Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Isn't that great?
That's what she turns herself into.
Yeah, she's like, ah.
Yeah.
It was Barbara Maitland. So I'm obviously not a New Hampshire native, but I live here. And so when I found that they were buried here, I had to go and check that out. But mostly because I was so fascinated by her story, I had found that this guy named Andrew Piper wrote, a short story about her and her husband's time there in office and about the haunting. The book is called The Residents, and I blew through it on audio because it was a good book. It's a historical book, but he's sprinkled in, things to kind of spice it up. And it tells you at the very end, and I assume that there's like a foreword or something that says, hey, look, there's obviously historical events that took place here, but there's also some stuff that we just put in here just to kind of add to the story, because he didn't know about the seance, to the full extent that that's never been publicized. You can't find anything about like what happened in the seance. So he's, telling you what happened in the seance. And, it's like, oh, it just kind of puts that little seed in your mind. So it's a good book. I do recommend it. The narrator, she was a little funny because it was a woman that did the narration on Audible. So when she does the man's voice, then she just kind of lowers her voice a little bit. So I love that. I thought that was cute. So that's a good one. Just a recommendation for you if you want any more history or ghosts in the White House. That just digs a little bit deeper into the relationship between the Pierces and the unfortunate event that led them to having such a, depressed life.
Yeah.
So great book. I love it.
I can't wait to listen.
But I do recommend it. I thought it was good.
I'll have to check that out. Anything that's on Audible, why not?
Yeah, I know. So like there's so many times when I'm like, oh, that's a good book. I want to see if I can just nope, it's not there.
And so it's like, okay, it's not available then. It's just not.
It's just not.
Who has time to read anything?
God, I have so many books and I keep collecting them, and I'm just like, I read the first 2 pages and then I'm like, I'm out. So I don't know when I'll actually get to read them. But when I found out about this story and I went right to Audible, I was like, oh, it exists.
Yeah.
Bye.
And then you just knock them out because it's like, driving back and forth to work and cleaning the house and stuff like that. I love it. So I'm definitely going to look this one up. Give me the title again.
It's The Residents.
Okay. Got it.
I can link it too, if you think.
Oh, yeah. Do that. Just make it super simple for me.
I'll link it.
Yeah. You meant to everybody else too. I thought you were just talking to me.
Yeah. No, I meant just, I'm just kidding. I'll do it for everybody.
Sounds good. All right. Well, that was an awesome story. Thanks so much.
Yay. You're welcome. So let's go vote, I guess, or not, because it's over by the time this podcast comes out.
No, it's the day before.
Oh, okay. Good. So there's still time. Get out and vote.
Yeah. If you haven't already, by mail or whatever. They do early voting. I think they have early voting where you actually go face to face. I don't know. I voted by mail, and I think you did too.
I did. My dad was one that went and stood in line and did the
early voting.
Early voting.
Yeah, but there's still more time tomorrow if you haven't voted.
Yep. Do it, man. Do it.
All right.
And thanks.
That's as political as we're ever going to get.
That's it.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.